There's probably nothing in the world more important to all of us than our health, and there's probably nothing scarier to all of us than to be told you have to go to the hospital. Except for one woman who's about to talk, who goes there every day. And not only is she not scared when she goes there, she's the one who keeps us all safe. So if you live in the state of New Jersey, you probably have been to a Hackensack Meridian System hospital. And if you haven't today, you will tomorrow, because they keep growing and growing and growing. I'm not going to read the bios that are on your app, because you have those, so I don't need to tell you everyone's school and everyone's length of career. But what I will tell you is that when you go to a healthcare institution, what you want to know is that everything is going to be done in the best possible way. And the person who makes sure that every regulation is met, that every safety protocol is kept, that every quality is of the highest, are the people that are the ones that regulate those healthcare institutions. And the best of the best is our next speaker. Audrey and I have fortunately had a chance to know each other for a while and have had a chance to work together, and I can tell you it doesn't come any better. So let's introduce our next speaker, Audrey Murphy.
So what I want to start out with, to me, there are three key concepts that were relevant to me in my journey. The three that I want to talk about are accountability, opportunities, and mentoring. So in terms of accountability, I'm sure a lot of you have interviewed folks as they come to your corporations for jobs. And one of the things they usually ask is about what are the development opportunities here, the career development? Do you have a program? Do you have a department, et cetera? And while those departments and those ideas are great, the bottom line is the career department, the career development department can only take you so far, right? It has to be something within yourself, that you're accountable to yourself for how you want to progress in your career. So I think that's great as you go into the different corporations to ask questions, but I would tell you that ultimately it's your responsibility. And I think in today's day and age where there seems to be a lot of lack of accountability, for whatever reason, it's very important that you focus on that. The second thing I would talk to you about is opportunities. I think we have all heard the cliche, you know, when opportunity knocks, answer the door. But you have to be able to hear the opportunity. I think a lot of us have seen people who have been presented with opportunities and they don't take advantage of them. And you're thinking to yourself, why didn't they take advantage of that opportunity? Because they didn't hear that opportunity. So I think when you hear an opportunity and it's one that you can take, you take it. Now it's scary, right? Because to get out of your comfort zone is scary. And it's potentially risk-taking. And I'll give you an example from my own life. So my background initially was in nursing. So I was a clinical specialist, and before that I was a manager, and before that I was a staff nurse. So when I was a nursing manager, I decided I wanted to go back for my master's because I wanted to be a clinical specialist. Now a lot of the folks I work with said, well, why would you want to do that? You have a management job, things are moving along. Why would you want to just suddenly up and do that? So, and the reason I mention that is because don't always expect that people will champion you or think that what you're doing is a good idea. That has to be an opportunity that you're willing to take on and be supportive for yourself. Now, there'll be other people in your lives who are going to support you, of course, but I think sometimes we expect a lot more from other people than they can deliver. And in that instance, these other staff members who said to me, why would you want to do that? I understood where they were coming from, not trying to be mean. Their comfort zone was what they were currently doing. They felt my comfort zone was a manager, and why would I want to go any further? So I think we have to realize that it has to be within ourselves to take these opportunities. And understandably, it's scary. Another example from my own background, so once I became a clinical specialist, I was working at a large medical center in New York City. Had a great job, had a great apartment, things were really moving along. I decided at that time that I wanted to go back to law school. And talk about being out of your comfort zone. I mean, you know, after being in healthcare all this time, going to law school was an extremely scary thought, because to me, the whole teaching process was nothing that I was used to, having been in healthcare. So the reason I decided to do it was because at that time, you'll probably all remember, AIDS sort of came on the scene. And a lot of the patients that I took care of in New York City had AIDS. And they were experiencing just a tremendous amount of discrimination. They were getting summarily thrown out of their jobs, thrown out of their apartments, et cetera. So I thought, you know what? Another skill set that would help me with my patients would be if I was a lawyer and I could do assist them in other ways. So I decided to go back to law school. Now, when I first told my friends, who at the time were a lot of the, you know, my co-workers and colleagues in healthcare, they were looking at me like I was insane. Now, why would you do that? You know, it's going to cost you a lot of money, ba, 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 ba. You know, all the reasons people give you. But I have to tell you, that was one of the best decisions I ever made in my life. So I go back, I finish law school, another great opportunity, and with those increased skills, I was able to go take myself to Hackensack University Medical Center, where now, since the merger with another great organization, Meridian Health, I've spent 27 years of my career. So the second piece of being opportunities, please, I encourage you. And I know it's scary. A lot of my friends, I've encouraged the same way. And we have to move beyond the scary. We have to move beyond not willing to take a risk, right? Because we know it's risky, but also the benefits that you reap are tremendous. And I think the third piece that I'd like to discuss with everyone here, third concept, is mentoring. At Hackensack Meridian Health, we have a very robust mentoring program. But you don't have to have a robust mentoring program in your own businesses to mentor or to be a mentee. We've all had mentors in our lives, right? First, maybe it was our parents, maybe it was our siblings. For me, it was Mrs. Andrews, who was my second grade teacher. I loved her. She had great style. You know, we all have mentors along the way, right? Some of my nursing supervisors who I remember vividly, right? That, you know, you can call up their name in a minute, and what did they teach you? What did you admire about them? And I'm sure there are people that you're working with now who you admire. You admire them for their various skill sets. Maybe they're great communicators. Maybe they are great managers. Don't be afraid to go up to those people and say to them, you know, would you be my mentor? It's a really small person who doesn't feel flattered by that, who would say to you, no, I don't want to be your mentor. I mean, really, think about it. If somebody came up to you and said, I'd like you to be my mentor, I admire how you communicate, I admire how you manage, I think that's very flattering to folks. And I think we're constantly learning, right? Every day we learn. We're always an apprentice. There's always something we can learn, and something we can learn from other folks. So I implore you to really use that concept. And I've had mentors my entire life. The CEO at our company is a mentor. And also as a mentee. If there are skill sets, even if you're in a certain position that you feel you don't have and that other folks have, you become the mentee. It's a building relationship, but it's something, to be honest with you, it's something you have to work on, and you have to be willing to work on continuously. It's not something that's, you know, a one-shot deal. You have to cultivate that relationship and keep it going. So in my journey, those three concepts have been the most important to me. Accountability, you always have to be accountable for yourself. Opportunities, taking the opportunities when they present them, hearing the opportunities, seeing the opportunities. And the third piece being the mentoring. And take advantage of that, really. And it doesn't always have to be that you have to have a female mentor. right? I think we're all people with a lot of good experience. So take the opportunity to pick out a mentor who you really feel can enhance your skill set. You can learn from them. I think we're good to go. Thank you.
Thank you. And don't go anywhere.
Yeah.
So, remembering the HIPAA laws, no one wants to hear about your medical history. I want to be able to take some questions now for Audrey. Clearly, Audrey, academia does not scare you as someone who went to school and then to school and then to school again, right? So that alone is inspiring to me. But do we have any questions from the floor? Can we start with? Well, if not, I'm going to start with one, which is healthcare is today, bears no relation, I'm sure, to when you started in this field. So tell us a little bit, look ahead a few years. What is it going to look like, and how are we going to all have access to the kind of healthcare that we need?
Well, that's a great question, Karen. I think looking forward, I think what we're going to see is, even though we've seen the growth in hospitals, the acute care settings, we are seeing more and more folks, right, in ambulatory settings, getting their care in ambulatory settings. And even though we've also invested a lot in long-term care, I think we're going to start seeing people go from the acute care setting and go home and have those services at home. More and more people want to be at home, whether it's, you know, with various pieces of equipment, the nurse coming in, physical therapists, respiratory therapists. So I think we're going to see a decrease in the long-term care usage by our population. I really do. I think it's going to start going more back into the homes. The acute care hospitals are going to stay what they are, but it's going to be for the very sick, because as these ambulatory centers grow, you know, you have the urgent care, you have surgery centers, so it's really going to be for the people who need to be, quite frankly, nursed, right? Because that's why people stay in a hospital. You need to be nursed. Everything else you can do on an outpatient basis, right, at this stage. So I think that's where we're going.
So if you were a young entrepreneur sitting in this audience and you thought that you wanted to go into healthcare, what kinds of skills would you be looking at as we look forward?
I think you'd be looking at financial skills, because you need to know all about the reimbursement and how the reimbursement has changed. You need to be a good manager. And I'll tell you, the biggest thing that I've learned in healthcare, you have to be flexible and agile. Because what you start doing one day, you're not going to be doing the next. And the pace of healthcare has just picked up to a point of, you know, it's crazy. We're so busy. So I think that you have to be very agile. And don't be somebody who doesn't want to plan strategically. You have to have strategic ideas, whether it's the 3-year plan, a 5-year plan, 10-year plan. And you need those plans for yourself and for your own career. Where do you want to be in 3 years? Where do you want to be in 5? Where do you want to be in 10? So.
Thank you. Any questions? Yes. Can you stand up and let's hear who you are?
Sure. Hi, I'm Christina Garfinkel. I work at Wakefield Food Corp. And my question is,
We have a mic. Oh, one second.
In the informal setting, what does that mentorship look like? If you're not in a mentorship program, once you ask someone to be your mentor, how does that take shape? How can you shape that?
Well, certainly, and thank you for that question. That's a great question. Certainly, there's a lot of books and information out there to help you on your journey. You know, in terms of making a contract, what we do is the mentor and the mentee make a contract together. And the mentee basically says to the mentor, here's what I'd like to accomplish. Here are my goals. And the mentor and the mentee sign off on those goals. And then what we do is a timeline. So you want to be better at public speaking. Okay, let's work on this for this period of time. We expect to have that goal by this date. I want to go back for another degree. Well, what is it going to take? How much prep to sit for the GREs or, you know, the LSATs, whatever. So that's what you can do, and you don't need a formalized program to do that. So it's more of, that's why I said earlier about building the relationship. So you sit and you discuss what the goals are, and then form a contract. The two of you sign off on the goals. And with a timeline, though. It's very important to have a timeline, or things really go off the rails.
When she said accountability, she means it, right? Any other questions from the audience? Yes. Hold on, let's wait for the mic. It's over here, gang, with the mic. Oh, you want to go first? Okay. Stay standing, but go ahead.
Hi, my name is Patricia Pfeiffer. I'm with Quisited. We're a market research
Can you do a
firm.
little closer to the better?
So my question is, I hear quite a few business executives in healthcare speak about a change in terminology from patient to customer.
Right.
And I'm curious as to the sense within the healthcare itself, the people on the floor, taking care of the patient, soon to be known as customer. And I'm wondering if you would comment on that, please.
Sure. I think a couple of years ago, the healthcare industry started taking a lot of its ideas from the hotel industry, right? So concierge services, customer, et cetera. I think the pendulum has swung back a little bit on that. So I think you're starting to hear more about the patient experience, and it's all about the patient experience. Because I think there was a little bit of a backlash about calling our patients customers, and particularly with the patients. You know, they would say, I'm not a customer, I'm a patient, I'm here for you to take care of me. So I think it went, we got into that mode when we started doing some of the modeling of the hotel industry. But I think that's swung back to more about patients and patient experience. And we all in the healthcare industry have patient experience officers in most of the individual hospitals who really are the advocates for the patients.
Terrific. I know we have a question over here. Yes.
Yes.
Your name first.
Yes, I'm Matangi Srinivas and I'm from Wings for Growth, a women's leadership development organization. And I have a specific healthcare related industry question, if I may.
Sure.
What can women do better to disrupt themselves and the industry and emerge as leaders? Women often have great ideas, but we kind of don't take that opportunity and seize it and to proceed forward. What advice would you give women in the healthcare industry to emerge as a strong leader, to disrupt?
Well, I think number one, you have to have courage, right? We all have to have courage and to push ourselves forward. I mean, one of the things that I've learned in all the years I've been working, you have to be, you're your biggest advocate. Nobody else is going to really advocate for you. And if you watch some folks that you work with, and I'm sure you know who they are, they're advocating for themselves every single day, right? To get the best assignments, to get whatever. So I think you have to have courage, one. I think I go back to the mentor-mentee relationship because I really think that helps folks, and particularly women. If you have a mentor, that person can really give you their experience. And maybe you can avoid some of the pitfalls because of some of the experiences that they've had. So I think that's the best way, but I also think you have to be an advocate for yourself. And when the opportunities come, and you know, a lot of times with my colleagues, I see them, you know, sort of take a back seat and say, well, I'm not really the most qualified. In my career, when they told me I was going to be in charge of security, I knew little about security. Will you take security? Sure, I will. And you educate yourself, you get yourself somebody who's a subject matter expert, like the director of security, to work with you. It's the same thing when they asked me to take on the insurance portfolio. I knew a little bit about insurance. What do? You get a subject matter expert to work with you, and I took that within my portfolio. So I think the willingness to learn, to grow, and take a chance, that's what we all need to do.
I think we're going to have to move to our next speaker, but I will tell you Audrey's around, and I think you all can understand now how lucky Hackensack Meridian System is to have Audrey serving as our general counsel.
Thank you, Karen.